Hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. Our topic for today is what effect does social media usage among adolescents have on the delinquent behavior of Canadian youth? Before we dive into the impact of digital trends on youth, I'm Jeremy with my co host Shay, Nicole, Hiba, and Princess. Today, we are exploring how social media usage might be influencing delinquent behavior among Canadian adolescents. Is it just a platform for fun, or is it fueling risky behavior? Let's find out today. So let's start with some context. Social media is a huge part of teens' lives in Canada today. According to research reports, Media Technology Monitors MTM Junior Report of 2023 and Statistics Canada 2023, over 90% of youth aged 15 to 24 actively use platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat. For many, it's their main source of connection and entertainment with others. To be sure, but with that constant exposure comes a darker side. Studies show that prolonged social media consumption by teenagers can influence risky behaviors like cyberbullying, vandalism, substance use, and even more minor theft. And then there's a cyberbullying platforms gives anonymity, making it easier for teens to engage in harassment. In some cases, this escalates to real-life confrontation or violent behavior. In addition, social media can promote desensitization to crime. This refers to a gradual reduction in emotional sensitivity or reaction to criminal or violent behavior due to repeated exposure.
So I just wanted to ask you about what you just said there. How do you think parents and schools can respond to this issue?
When people, especially adolescents, are frequently exposed to crime related content, whether through social media, movies, video games, or real life experiences, they may begin to see it as a normal, entering, or less serious. This can lead to a lack of empathy for victims or a decreased perception of the consequences of criminal acts. When teens frequently see illegal acts portrayed as funny or trendy, they may become more willing to experiment with risky behavior themselves. Social media crime challenges platforms like TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram sometimes feature viral pranks or challenges that involve theft or physical assaults. When teens repeatedly see videos of their peers stealing or damaging property, they may become desensitized, viewing these acts as a harmless or even funny rather than criminal. Like, for example, violent video games or content, playing games or watching videos with realistic violence, for example, Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto V, over time can make individuals less emotionally responsive to real life violence. They may view fights or theft as less shocking or feel less empathy for victims. Another one is the phenomenon Momo Challenge is a hoax in the internet which was became popular in July 2018 that was rumored to spread through social media. It was reported that children and adolescents were being harassed by a user named Momo to perform a series of dangerous tasks, including violent attacks, self harm, harm others, and suicide. Moreover, the Momo challenge sparked global panic and prompted urgent warnings from authorities and child safety advocates. Reports of children encountering Momo's disturbing messages circulated widely, causing heightened fears among parents and caregivers. This desensitization can increase the likelihood of risk-taking behavior or bystander apathy, where people are less likely to intervene when witnessing a crime. Hello, folks. Can I turn you over to my colleague, Nicole? And she will be talking about her topic.
Okay, friends, today I'm going to be speaking about protective factors. So, parents and caregivers can foster positive family connections that provide a safe, welcoming atmosphere for the young people in their life. These conditions and influences can reduce the likelihood that their youth will engage in questionable activities. Youth delinquency is complex. It has many factors that contribute to online and offline risky behaviors. Mental health is also on the rise due to lack of control a youth has when engaging in social media content. There are so many influencers that make the youth feel accepted, and some of these people's content are so toxic to one's mental health.
What are some of the things a parent can do to reduce a young person's chances of choosing the wrong group or crowd of friends?
Great question, Shay. So some of the things a parent can do to reduce the likelihood of their young person choosing the wrong crowd are being a constant support, enrolling the youth in extracurricular activities, assigning them chores at home, and make time to hang out as a family. Without these protective factors, young people may seek out peers or environment that lead them down negative paths. The saying is, it's easier to do bad than it is to do good, speaks to how challenging it can be to make right choices without the right supports in place. Supportive school environments that offer programs that the youth can engage in during and after school are an asset. Addressing all forms of bullying, whether in cyber world or on school property, would foster safer and more academic driven youth. Monitoring youth's activity online can be the first line of defense when it comes to preventing risky behavior. Teaching them about appropriate boundaries, having etiquette, having open dialogue, and monitoring internet usage keeps the youth accountable. Furthermore, if they know that you are watching them, they will be less likely to sway from the path that you set out for them. Building up their coping skills and teaching them emotional regulation will assist the youth in withstanding the urge to join in with their delinquent friends. Encouraging self confidence and good self esteem are ways to make the youth less susceptible to peer pressure both in person and online. Teach the youth to engage with gaming sites, creative outlets, and social media sites that emphasize positivity, skill building, and virtual career exploration. Now I will pass it on to my co host, Princess.
I will be expanding on Nicole's topic, which is what factors make social media such a powerful influence on young minds, sometimes leading them towards risky or even criminal behavior. The first factor is exposure to harmful content. The internet is full of content, some good and some bad. Unfortunately, many young people are exposed to violent videos, illegal activities, or even drug use on social media. What might start as a simple curiosity can turn into imitation. When crimes is glorified online, it can make delinquent behavior seem exciting rather than dangerous. Second factor is peer pressure and online influence. Social media is also a breeding ground for peer pressure. If young people see their friends or even influencers engaging in risky behaviors, they may feel the need to do the same. Online gangs and criminal groups use social media to recruit vulnerable teens, offering them a sense of belonging while leading them down a dangerous path. The role of parental supervision is also very important. How parents and guardians monitor their children's online activity plays a role in how children are negatively influenced on social media. When young people have free and unregulated access to social media, they are more likely to encounter harmful influences. However, when parents set boundaries, encourage open conversations, and educate their children about online danger, the risk of delinquency decreases significantly. Another factor is mental health and emotional well being. Social media can also affect mental health, which is directly linked to behavior. Cyberbullying, unrealistic beauty standards, and online rejection can lead to depression, low self esteem, and even aggression. Some young people Feeling isolated or angry may turn to delinquent behavior as an outlet for their emotion.
Hey, Princess, could the amount of time someone spends on social media influence delinquent behavior?
The more young people spend on social media, the greater the influence it has on them. Excessive screen time takes away from healthier activities like studying, sports, or spending time with family. Late night social media use also affects sleep, making teenagers more irritable and impulsive. Two traits can contribute to risky decisions. Community and economic factors. Not all young people experience social media in the same way. Those from disadvantaged backgrounds or high crime neighborhoods are more vulnerable to the negative influence on social media. Financial struggles can push teens into online scams or theft, while others may feel drawn to online communities that encourage illegal activity. The role of social media platforms and law enforcement. Finally, we must consider how well social media platforms and law enforcement address these issues. Weak regulation allows harmful content to spread, and if there is a little to no punishment for cyberbullying, scams, or illegal behavior online, youths may feel emboldened to break the rules.
Okay, Princess, can you give us some recommendations for this?
Stronger policies, better content moderation, and proactive intervention can help reduce the impact of social media on juvenile delinquency. I will now hand over to my co host, Hiba.
Hello everyone, my name is Heba, and today I will be speaking about hate, aggression, and victimization on social media. So, hate, aggression, and victimization on social media have become a growing issue in today's world, especially for teenagers and young adults who spend a lot of time online. While social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat were originally meant to help people connect, share ideas, and stay in touch with friends, they've also become spaces where toxic behavior, bullying, and harassment happen all too often. This kind of negativity can be deeply harmful, especially when it's repeated or when large amounts of people join in on the attack. One of the reasons why this problem keeps getting worse is because people can hide behind screens. When users are anonymous or use fake accounts, they often feel like they can say whatever they want without having to face the consequences. This kind of false confidence leads some people to send hateful messages, spread rumors, or leave cruel comments that they would probably never say in real life. These attacks are not always just random. Sometimes people intentionally target others to embarrass them, ruin their reputation, or make them feel unsafe online. This kind of online aggression takes many forms. Sometimes it's direct and obvious, like personal insults, threats, or racist, sexist, or homophobic comments. But other times it's more indirect, like when someone shares another person's private photos, personal information, or secrets without their permission, basically exposing them in a way that leaves them vulnerable to judgment, harassment, or even real world consequences. In other cases, people create posts or videos that are meant to shame or humiliate someone and then encourage others to comment or react negatively, leading to group harassment or social exclusion. What makes this even worse is the way social media algorithms are designed. Platforms are built to keep users engaged, which means posts that get a lot of likes, comments, or shares are boosted and shown to more people. Unfortunately, negative and hateful content tends to spread quickly because it creates drama and grabs attention. That means that even if someone is being unfairly targeted or bullied, their experience might be turned into entertainment for others, sometimes even going viral. As more people see the post, they might join in or add fuel to the fire, making the victim feel surrounded and hopeless. For young people, this type of online abuse can be especially damaging. Teenagers are still figuring out who they are and how they see themselves, so constant online hate can lead to serious mental health issues like anxiety, depression, low self esteem, or even suicidal thoughts. It can also affect their performance in school, their friendships, and how safe they feel in their own community. The emotional impact of this kind of harassment is very real, even though it happens online. Most social media platforms do offer some tools to help, like blocking users, reporting abusive content, or limiting who can comment on your posts. But the truth is, these tools aren't always enough. Harassers can create new accounts, avoid being reported, or continue their behavior in more subtle ways. A lot of victims feel like the platform doesn't really protect them or take their complaints seriously. Some even say the apps seem more interested in keeping people online and making money than in creating a safe and respectful environment. Overall, hate, aggression, and victimization online aren't just personal problems, they reflect a bigger issue with how social media is used and managed. There needs to be more accountability, better moderation, and more support for those who are being targeted. Until then, many young people will continue to face serious harm from something that should have been a fun and creative way to connect with others. Thank you.
And last but not least, I will hand over to Shay.
As you know, social media does impact our mental health. There are some positive ways, as in it allows us to effortlessly connect with our family and our friends, which we all need as human beings. We need that social connection. But on the other end of the spectrum, social media can make it too easy for us to connect with the wrong kinds of people. It can make it especially intriguing for young people to connect with dangerous groups or get stuck in cycles of constant comparison, become tempted to commit crime under the influence of social media culture, and it emboldens cyberbullies because they know that they have a screen to hide behind. When youth feel unaccepted and misunderstood, as they often do, I'm sure we all remember a moment where we felt that way in our childhood. They desire a social connection that provides them with the understanding and the acceptance that they've been lacking. Having less years of experience, adolescents tend to be drawn to negative crowds whom they think are genuine and caring and will have their back, but end up being destructive influences who only end up causing them more risk. For the sake of social inclusion, many youth, especially those with low self control, may feel pressured to join in on criminal activity just to fit into the new group they've become a part of. They may start to adopt the ideologies of new groups, and they may not all be good ones.
All right. Sorry, Shay. I have a question. What do you think is the most common mental health concern on excessive use of social media of the youth today?
Well, thank you for asking. And in fact, according to a study done in 2023, um, it was stated that the higher usage of social media among Canadian youth is directly correlated with a higher risk of experiencing multiple mental health difficulties. This just includes a general poor mental health overall, depression and anxiety, elevated eating disorder symptoms, suicidal ideation, and suicide attempt. Excessive usage of social media amongst youth really does affect their mental health. Um, there are a lot of negative ways it does this, and in boys and girls, it shows up differently. So, for example, in females, we know that social media is a platform that doesn't really project reality. However, many young people still tend to get caught up in what they see. They forget that most of what they're seeing on social media is not really the truth, but just a small, distorted version of it. yet they still tend to compare themselves to people that they see living the most exotic and luxurious lifestyles. This kind of thinking can take a negative toll on young people's mental health as they may start to develop feelings of inadequacy, pushing them into a place of vulnerability. Cyberbullying has become one of the youth's favorite tools for bullying, which has created a serious public mental health issue among adolescents. Because social media uses virtual platforms, they're somewhat anonymous, which emboldens a bully, as they know that they don't need to work up the nerve to attack their victim face to face. They can hide behind the screen, and there's a good chance that they'll get away with it. This also impacts the victim's mental health because when they go home expecting peace and quiet, they could still be attacked from behind their screen, their computer, their phone. In a comparison between the cyberbullied and the non bullied, um, studies prove that psychological distress and low self esteem among victims of cyberbullying are much higher.
All right, Shay. Hold on. I just want to ask this one. Is there difference among the gender?
So actually, we didn't really notice much of a difference between the reported cyber victimization between males and females. They both reported, well, the female number of reporting was a bit higher. We don't know if that's because it happened to them more or if it's just because they were more open and willing to come forward. But there wasn't really much of a difference between them reporting their reports of cyberbullying. However, the effects and the way that it affects them emotionally manifests differently in their lives. For example, in young females, it often manifests as depression, anxiety, and suicidality. Their emotions are mostly um, directed at themselves, and in young men, it usually is manifested as depression, aggression, and violence, and their emotions are usually placed outward onto other people more.
All right. How can parents and institutions like schools respond to this effect of social media? One key approach is media literacy education. Schools should teach students how to critically evaluate content and recognize harmful trends. And parents can play a role by monitoring social media activity of their kids and having open conversations about the consequences of risky behavior. It is all about creating healthy boundaries while still respecting teens' privacy. And finally, platforms themselves could do more, like implementing stricter content, moderation, or warming labels for potentially harmful trends. Yeah, we can avoid also, children to everyday facing social media by giving them program, especially during the summer vacation.
Yeah, I love the part where you mentioned about them being enrolled in more activities and more community involvement because that's so important just to shift their focus onto something more positive and more productive so they even have less time to focus on social media and they have less time to even use it.
This is why the community involvement is so important. We need to get the youth involved in recreational activities, sports, art programs, possibly even mentorship programs. Also, feeling connected to schools and the teachers that teach them opens up opportunities for success, both in academics and in extracurricular activities. Positive reinforcements will bring on good behavior.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right, Nicole.
I just want to add one thing: social media is not an enemy, but it's simply a tool. But how young people use it and who influences them and how much guidance they receive from parents, schools, and society can determine whether it leads them down a positive path or a negative path. If we want to reduce juvenile delinquency, we need to be more mindful of the digital world we expose our youths to. Thank you for tuning in today's episode. What effect does social media usage amounts adolescents have on delinquent behavior? of Canadian youths. We appreciate your continued support. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on our next discussion. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram so you do not miss out. Thank you for listening.